have this responsibility, humanitarian responsibility, when they're in the room to grab them, to remove and strip away all of the noise outside, and to provide them with an experience that they will remember forever. But like I said, treat people like adults. They're there to learn, they're there to have an experience, and they're there to change their life, whether it's in business or personal development or anything like that. They want to have an experience with you, and it's your job to demonstrate how you can help them save their life or save the life of other people. The biggest concerns that people have when they are running an event, or the idea of running an event, is they think it needs to be really complex, it's really, really hard to do.
The future of marketing is going omnichannel. Why New York? Because I can hear your accent. You're from Australia, and
I am, yeah. Why New York City? So I first traveled here when I was living in Toronto in Canada, and I was estranged from my family at the time, actually. And we were meeting on neutral territory here in New York to be able to kind of rekindle. And I got a bus that cost me $1 from Toronto. I traveled overnight on this bus. It was like this 13-hour, like, horrible journey and everything. And then the bus came into Manhattan in a tunnel, and then came out at the Port Authority bus terminal, and I got out. It was like 6 a.m. in the morning. The sun was rising. And I stepped off the bus and like stepped on the sidewalk as a train rumbled underneath, as there was a car honking, there was trash on the side, and a homeless person kind of going off. And I was like, I need to be here. This is crazy. And I've just had this love affair with the city ever since. And I came back every couple of years and just fell in love. It's just a remarkable testament to, I would say, the pioneering spirit. Like, you think of the Statue of Liberty and what that represents, and people sailing in and everything. So, and it's just cool. You can do anything here. From Central Park, musicals, like theater, restaurants galore. You could pretty much eat from every country. And where I live, actually, if I just walk 5 minutes, I'm in Chinatown, and then 5 minutes after that, I'm in Little Italy, and then 5 minutes after that, I'm in Tribeca, and then I'm on the West Side. And
so basically, you never have to leave New York. That's why you're trying to tell me.
The funny thing is, though, I've been here for 6 months now, since June, almost 7 months, and I've only spent like 3 months cumulatively in New York because I travel so much for business. I'm kind of going at the moment. I'm like, well, I'm paying all this money and I'm never here. Like, is it the right place for me to be? I think it is for a bit longer, but we'll see. The US is very big, and I've got lots of opportunities everywhere.
I have so many questions from I know we have our main topic for today, but from the estranged family, like neutral zone type of meeting, to there's a trash can, and I loved it. And the chaos. I think it's just, to me, it's like my mind is going so many places. But you know what? I'm happy you're here. I listened to a little bit into your story before this interview.
Yeah. And
I guess my first question would be to you, Brody, is how did you go from a drug addict to what you're doing now?
Yeah. So great question. So,
creating $1 million events.
I just give everyone that mic drop moment that I was a drug So
sorry, but you called yourself, I literally noted.
No, I know. I'm so happy for you to do it. I just thought it was funny. I'm just like, oh my God, everyone doesn't know me. And then that's the first thing they learn. And it probably would be the first thing that I'd share with you. Yeah, look, on May 23, 2017, I woke up from a massive drug overdose that should have killed me. When I woke up from that overdose, I had my mum, my dad, a paramedic police officer, and a housemate all looking down at me. And it was like, I had this supreme moment of clarity. I'm not sure if anyone else has experienced this, where everything becomes clear. And despite the fact that I had drugs coursing through my veins, I had meth, I had GHB, I had cocaine, I had everything kind of coming through. And meth was my drug of choice. I was instantly clear, and I had this clarifying question that just came through. It was like, is this really how you want to live your life? And the answer was like, it came out of my mouth, and it's the big fat, fuck no! And like, my family thought that I was saying because they were there, but it was like this internal process. And I was in that moment, it's kind of like I woke up to life again. I very clearly remember this moment when I went up to the therapist that diagnosed me and said, look, I really understand and I respect the diagnosis and I totally get it. I see why you would come to that conclusion. And I don't want that to be my story, because I know that people with complex PTSD, they either end up institutionalized in an institution. They end up in jail. thankfully I never got there, or they end up dead, and I was a whisker away from losing my life. So complex PTSD is not the story. There's got to be more to it than that. And I went to figure it out. So I found myself in the Landmark Forum. That was the first personal development event I'd ever done, and eventually found my way to a Tony Robbins event. And that's where everything kind of shifted for me, and I was just ready at that moment. I don't think it was necessarily Tony's work so much, as brilliant as it is, more so I was just ready to change. And so I go into this event. On the first day, I walk across the 3,000 degree hot coals. And then after that, on the third day, Tony does this process where it's called the Dickens process, where it's a bit of timeline therapy, it's future pacing, it's regressing into the past and all this sort of stuff. And in that moment, I got rid of all of the trauma. I got rid of all of the pain. And it was this incredible kind of experience of where once I got rid of the trauma and pain, it was tears streaming down my face. I also had another moment of clarity. And then what happened next was all in like mind moments. It was over a matter of seconds. But I realized that if I wanted to move forward, then I needed to forgive my abuser. I hadn't really thought much about him. He was a teacher at my school. I hadn't really given him much thought, but I realized that if I held on to it, if there was any lingering resentment at all, then I would just need to let go, because otherwise it would have led down a really, really horrible path. And so I was there, tears streaming down my face, and then I just kind of put out into the universe and I said out loud, I'm like, I don't know where you are. I don't know what you're up to at the moment, but I understand for you to do that to a little boy, then you must have really been hurting. And so for that, I forgive you. And then it's like, I'm not religious, but what happened next I can only describe as biblical in nature, because I had this whoosh coming over my body, and it was like all of the weight of all of the previous years just disappeared. It was like all of that trauma from like 25 years of my life just gone in an instant. And what I realized later, I synthesized it. In the moment that I forgave him, I forgave myself. And in that forgiveness, I found a future. So at this point, I was overtaken by pure joy, and pure unadulterated joy. I tasted ecstasy for the first time since I was 6 years old, which is kind of ironic because I took a lot of the drug ecstasy as well. But this was pure. This was like from within. And with that joy, I made a decision. I'm like, I'm going to make every single day. Like, I want every single day to feel like this. And then in the next breath, it was like, hang on, no. I want every single person to feel like this. So I made a decision that from that day forward, I was going to make my life be about impact. And I went to the back of the room. I purchased everything that they had. I didn't even have a business at that point. I'm like, just sell me everything. And I was like, can I buy this business mastery thing if I don't have a business? They're like, yeah, it'll figure itself out. A week later, I was on a phone call with someone. I was so green at the time to this industry. They texted me and they said, let's jump on a call and brainstorm some ideas together. And I now know that to be a sales call, which I'm really good at. But at the time, I was like, sure, he just wants to help me out. Here I am handing over my last $15,000 from my nest egg from when I was my career at Apple, and I started a business, and it went really well. At first, I was a performance coach. I made $100,000 in my first 10 weeks, and then I decided I'll quit everything I'm doing. I'm going to focus. I was doing my master's. I was running an experience program for a fertility clinic across all of Australia. I was organizing 100 people to run in the New York Marathon to raise money for charity. Like, I was doing everything, and I cleared the decks. I went to the New York Marathon. I'm going to invest everything in my business. Now, I made $333,000 in my first 6 months, $1 million in my first 10 months, and then $1.3 million in that first year. It's not about that money though, because interestingly enough, I felt a weight of responsibility with it because I was very lucky. Like, for me to be able to get that kind of success, I had previously worked for Apple, and I had a PhD style education in running the world's largest company. I used to run events for them, training their leadership and executive teams on when Steve Jobs did a massive product launch, how to translate the millions of people that would come into our stores into paying customers. And so Apple's known for the one-to-one service, but that all went out the window and we had to sell one-to-many. And so I trained everyone across the entire Canadian market at that point on how to sell one-to-many, 8 years of experience with them. And so I started teaching what we were doing. And part of that was around the philanthropy. Since September of 2020, this is where it really kicked up. The first taste of it was when I took the 100 people to run in the New York Marathon. We raised $300,000 to help get kids off the streets, and we met some of those kids, and I was like, okay, cool, I got a taste of this. This is awesome. Like, make money and give it away. This feels really cool. And then since September of 2020, and we've donated over 5 million individual impacts to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, to projects within them. And what that means is that there are 5 million people that are smiling as a result of money that we donated, be it food, water, saving kids from sex trafficking, or planting climate change trees to combat climate change. And so that's kind of how it all began. the event stuff with Apple translated into us running really phenomenal events in the business at the time. And, in 2020, I ran my first $1 million event in the middle of the pandemic. I put on a virtual event. It was so funny. All of our events, we kept getting pushed back. In March, Australia shut down our borders and we weren't allowed to leave the country for 2 years. I lost millions of dollars overnight. 2020 was going to be my breakout year. I had 36 weeks of travel booked on the road, and then it just cut. We just kept pushing the events back because we didn't really know what the pandemic was going to bring. And eventually I got tired and I just said, look, we need to run an event. And we ran this event. I wasn't intending to sell anything. And on the second day, I was like, holy shit, this is going really well. Maybe I should sell something. And kind of wrote down an offer on the back of a napkin, like a piece of paper, but it was like the proverbial napkin, handed it to my team, and I sold the next day and fell over when they told me we'd made them. And so the $1 Million Events brand was kind of born out of that. I did 3.5 million the next year and started helping people. And we've done a really, really good job over the last few years. We've had some phenomenal results with incredible clients, big names, and now coming to us as well. But the thing that's remained consistent through all of it is the dedication to impact. And I'll just end on this note and then we can continue with the rest of it, is that I firmly believe now that you should treat every single sales conversation like it will save their life, because it just might. The sales conversations that I had to get into rehab saved my life. The sales conversations that I had at the Tony Robbins event saved my life. And many sales conversations that I've had with people that have come into our world since have saved their lives. And that's why I believe in events is the power, events are an amplifier. We can do all of the normal type of strategy to get people into our programs, and not dissing on those strategies. They're all really, really important. They all work. But there's something special about when humans come together to connect, to communicate, and to engage in commerce. We've been doing it for 300,000 years. I mean, the church, for example, why would they still be running an event every single Sunday in millions of churches all around the world for the last 2,025 years? Because they work. Arguably, the church, I'd say, is the best sales organization in the world. The head of the church is gone, Jesus died, and the church is still running in his name 2,025 years later. So there's a clue in that for us in this industry. And as we move into the new world of AI, I'm sure we'll touch on that today, this human connection is going to become more important than ever. And so I'm just grateful to be able to play my part in that.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. I feel like there was just so much to unpack. I don't even know where to start.
Now that was the mic drop moment.
But right? You know what? I don't think I will. Because I think from beginning to end, it was perfect the way you said it. So I don't want to be like, oh, so how was it? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think that was really good. So thank you so much for sharing that. And just sharing all that so honestly and vulnerably to the world to hear.
Well, here's something on that. Just sorry to interrupt, but I had a coaching call with somebody recently, with one of my mentors, Taylor. And he's like, do you know what your superpower is, Brody? And I was like, what? He's like, I was going through a bit of a dark patch, and there was this stuff that was happening that was kind of my mind was not a very nice place to be in the moment. And he said that, you're powerful because you bleed. That's your superpower, your vulnerability. And when I think about the most connected I've ever felt with people, it's when you own your stuff. It's when you show up unapologetically and you share, this is me. This is who I am, warts and all. I'm not a perfect human being on any level. I've been through hell. Everyone on the planet's been through hell. And so the more that we share stuff vulnerably, it gives permission for other people to do the same. And so that's why I do it. So thank you for acknowledging that. I appreciate it.
Of course. And you also talked about the philanthropy aspect. And I can see that it's very important to you. It's on your website, the amount of impacts, the 5 million smiles. So why is that giving back is something that you decided to be a part of your legacy and business?
Quite simply, the world is a scary place for a lot of people. I was raised Buddhist. I'm very blessed. My parents, with a bunch of other hippies, took a particular strand of, quite a secular strand of Buddhism out to the West in the 70s and 80s. And I was raised Buddhist. I actually ordained as a monk. My first overseas trip, I went to Burma when I was 10 years old. And now I ordained as a monk. And there was this really clear moment when I was there. Monks have these black bowls, these big black bowls. They're called alms bowls. And they do something called an alms round, where they walk through town at certain times of the day, and people come out to donate to them, and it's called dana. That's the act of charity, right? And they rely on the kindness of strangers to be able to survive, because monks are not supposed to have worldly possessions. And so people normally will put food in. They'll put gifts to help them, with their day-to-day needs. And then also put money in envelopes. Monks aren't supposed to take money to go to the monastery to help. help them to feed them. And there was this one day we were doing an arms round through Burma. Now, Burma is one of the world's poorest countries. We were walking down a street and the people were lining the road. It was a big deal for Westerners to be there at the time. This was 1996. And they were just so excited that we were there. And people were lining the streets. They were donating things to people in front of me. And when you're not supposed to make eye contact with people, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw this woman kind of standing back. She would have been in her 80s, I would imagine. And she was skin and bones. And she'd caught my eye and then she moved to the front of the line. And then she placed some food in my bowl. Now, she was skin and bones, and there was something deep inside of me that you know what, like, this is injustice. This is not fair. Like, I'm this relatively rich by standards, right? We were middle class, we weren't super rich, but comparatively, we were filthy, right? And filthy rich. And I had my first taste of inequality in that moment. And it's been in my DNA. Like, my top values are integrity, honesty, and generosity. Both generosity in terms of giving, but generosity of spirit. And I think that moment kind of clarified for me. Now, for the rest of my life, I did cool fundraising things in school and all that sort of stuff. But from 18 years old through to 31 years old, I did nothing like that. And it was removed because I was in this really low state of living, this low vibrational energy. And so when I came out of it and I got back in touch with my core, it became really clear for me that I needed to, through that Tony Robbins event, that this is all about paying it forward. I'll just share some statistics that blow my mind and just make me really angry, but also really committed at the same time. So 900 million people experience food insecurity every single day in the world. And that means they don't know where their next meal is coming from. What's interesting about that, though, is globally, we produce a 1.5x surplus of the food that we need to feed everyone. So it's not for a lack of resources that we can feed them. It's a lack of resourcefulness and drive by society and governments, but also infrastructure to get it to them. This isn't sexy, but one of the ways to solve world hunger is to build roads, because a lot of people can't get access to food because there's no infrastructure to get the food to them. The second one that blew my mind was that 2 billion people don't have access to clean drinking water, and 4 billion people don't have adequate sanitation. So you can imagine what that means from a pure life point of view, because water is the source of life, but also from a health outcomes point of view. We know that roughly 50 million children are trafficked for sex every single year, which is just galling. Then that climate change, we're seeing right now the effects of climate change in California with all of their wildfires, which are just devastating. And so I look at these sorts of things and I go, look, I'm in a position where I can help. Governments have failed us. They haven't, funnily enough, I'm in an industry where most people believe in small government, get out of our way and all that sort of stuff. I actually believe in in big government. But at the moment, we don't have that. And the system is not designed to support everyday people that are struggling. It's not. It really, really needs to be revamped. And I look at the Scandinavian models and I go, they're so good to their citizens. They provide them with so much. But in the absence of that leadership in the West and in places like the United States, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, England, the big five kind of countries, well, someone needs to step in. I don't mean that like I'm a savior or anything like that, but we all have a fiduciary responsibility to humanity. If we have the means, we have leveraged society, we have benefited from it, then we should give back, and it should be done freely without expectation of anything in return. And, some people say you should give quietly. I don't believe that. I think you should give and shout it from the rooftops, not because you want to stroke yourself on the back, but because it inspires other people to do the same. There's this statement that I say in one of my keynote speeches that whoever said money can't buy happiness simply hasn't given enough away. I find that so powerful. So that's why. Now, the next part of this is something that I've come to more recently. So this idea that what if every time we do business, something good happens in the world? Now, what that means to me is that we can actually, every time we do business, we can make something good happen as a result of that, even if it's not directly related to the business that we're doing. I'm in the business of changing people's lives through the power of events. But what if every time somebody has a breakthrough at an event, we donate a week's worth of clean drinking water? So we type impact into the chat of our events, and we get to build that gamification in and make the audience a part of it. And what normally happens is that they'll get up to a certain number, and then I'll personally match the number, and I'll donate all of that through the money that we make. And then there's this other one, which is what I'm more dedicated to now, and I live in a question. That question is very, very clear. It's based on a statement from Buckminster Fuller, who was an old futurist. He coined something called the world game. And so the question that I live in now is, what if we could make the world work for 100% of humanity, 100% of the time, without damaging the environment or harming people? That's why I give, because I want to make the world work for everyone. Now, at the moment, 1% of the world's population, 80% of the world's population live on less than $10 per day. 75% of the world's wealth is concentrated in the top 20%. And then the top 1% have 5 times more wealth, actually more now, but 5 times more wealth than the bottom 80% combined. And when I think about it, I go, well, 1% of the world has figured out how to make it work. We've got 99 to go. And so that's the name of our foundation, 1 down, 99 to go. It's actually a play on something that I learned on Apple many, many years ago. And yeah, I just think that we have everything we need to make it work. So we just need people to step up. And so if I can play a small part in that, then that'll be a great legacy long term.
I love that. I love that. And I love the impact that you're making. And thank you so much for doing that and just passing the word forward to everyone. I kind of want to go to your vehicle of choice, which was through events, Yeah. And especially for this topic today, what do you think makes an in-person event exceptionally good?
Question. A lot of people think it's the content, and sure, the content is important, but it's the people in the room and the moments that you give them to connect. When human beings are wired for connection, and there's this whole thing that you need between 6 and 10 hugs per day to get your needs met for nurture. Something happens from an energetic point of view in a room when people are together. And the cool thing about events is you bring in people that are like-minded but ultimately strangers, and you give them that opportunity to connect, and great things happen. The Latin root word of the word competition, actually it's competere, and that's the Latin word, and it means to conspire together. And so when you bring people into a room like that, they might be direct competitors. In fact, I've just joined forces with my direct competitor, my biggest competitor, and we're putting on an event together. Something really remarkable happens in that when you conspire together to create great outcomes. And so I think the people in the room and the curation of experiences where people can connect probably is the number one thing that makes events, I would say, superior to other mechanisms. And here's why, from a pure sales strategy point of view. So if you're thinking about growing your business, right, which is what we all want to do, I want more money so I can give more away. Like that's my goal. Imagine having someone in a room with you for 3.5 days where you are holding them in a container. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cold at the moment. Holding them in a container versus having somebody on a 45-minute sales call. Which of those do you think is going to have the better connection and rapport with you? Obviously the person that's been there for 3.5 days, right? You've demonstrated your craft to them, you've built an in-person connection. Now, we also know anecdotally as well that people who come into events stay for clients as longer, which is really interesting. And the reason for that is because of the connections that they've made in the room, not just with you, but with other people as well. So at our events, when people come into the room, what I want for them is to have an experience that when they come into the room, it's like they are entering a different world. It's very, very, very important. When they have all of the things that are happening outside, all of the stuff, all of the different things that are affecting them, that are making them not feel great, whatever it is, and then you have this responsibility, humanitarian responsibility, when they're in the room to grab them, to remove and strip away all of the noise outside, and to provide them with an experience that they will remember forever. I call it making an event go viral. And what I mean by that is that you want the people in the room, A, to be marketing your event while they're there. Hey, I'm in the room of this event, it's crazy. And you want them to think that this was the best event that I've ever been to, because it taps into their core humanity. And when you can provide that experience, great things happen. I still have people coming back to me from that event that we did in 2020. When I told my team that we were going to do it, I first said, we're going to hold people on Zoom for 16 hours a day across 3 days. They are going to come to us afterwards and say they were more energized and it was the best event they've ever been to. It was better than Tony Robbins. I still have people to this day coming back to me and saying, hey, remember that event you did in 2020? It changed my life. That's what I mean by creating a viral event, because it, like the ripple-on effects of that as well. Imagine someone comes into your room, they change, they go home, they change the people around them, those people change, and it's this ripple-on thing. I call that return on impact, or ROI.
In the 2022 event, can you tell me a little bit of details on what was happening in that event that made it so good that people still talk about it to this day?
Yeah, the 2020 event. So look, it was, first of all, One of the reasons why it was so good was because no one else was doing virtual events at that time in the industry. People were still doing webinars in their kitchen with their crappy camera and their cat kind of at the back. We didn't really know how to produce on this level yet. But I set up a studio in my house. I was really committed. I'm like, I'm going to make them feel, and this is probably the key thing. So I want them to feel that they are in a room with me, even though that they're at home. And I want them to not be able to pull their eyes away from the screen because they're getting so much from this. And so there was, the supply of human connection had dropped dramatically, which means that the demand for it increased. And we're seeing the same now with AI, which is why events should be a part of everyone's strategy moving forward. And I'll get back to that when we talk about AI a little bit later, because I really want to touch on that. But people were hungry for it. They needed it. They needed to feel like they were together with people. We had people, I think we had people from something like 20 something countries on there. It was like, there was over 200 people. It was insane. And then, so that, first of all, it was the commitment to providing that experience that made it so that they felt that like they were live in the room with us. That was number one. The second part is the curation of the experience in the room. And I say in the room, but on Zoom, right? We treated it like we were running an event live in person. So we gave them opportunities to connect. We put them into breakout rooms. When we were on breaks, we had people, we did the other thing as well. I hired the person that does Tony Robbins' music at his events, cello. And he created an experience, an emotional experience with the music that we were not used to virtually. And he took everything that he'd known from his 15 years running Tony Robbins events and helped provide that for us as well. So there was movement involved, which is what you get at events as well. There was emotional stuff in the content that I delivered. It wasn't all business. It was like, look, we're in a really interesting time in humanity, and this is the moment where we get to define who we are in the future. Are we going to fall like the rest of the world who's like losing their mind at the moment, or are we going to step up to the plate and be leaders? And so it was more than an acquisition event. It was a leadership event. And we got people into the position of taking, first of all, I talk about impact in 4 levels. So the first person you need to impact is yourself, right? For you to be able to impact anyone else, you got to do good for you first. Then your immediate family. Obviously, you want those around you to be fulfilled and happy and enjoying life, have all their needs met. Then your local community. Everyone's got their own local communities, which are really important from our tribal days. But then we want to expand it further to that than to the world, okay? So at that event, we taught that. We did all of the giving. We did all of those sorts of things. I forget the number of impacts that we had at that event, but it was in the thousands. It was crazy. And I've mirrored that since. we did, like I said, we did 3.5 million the next year with our events. And every single event that we've done has built on that. And it's about creating those moments of connection that they cannot get anywhere else, or they cannot get on regularly on a camera. And so we did it virtually, and now we spend more time doing it in person, just because that, like I said, that demand for human connection is on the increase.
I love that. And I guess I want to go a little bit on the realms of in-person events.
Yep.
And obviously, you have been widely successful in making millions at the event. How do you find a balance between delivering excellent experience and also pitching, so it doesn't become a pitch fest? It's a good balance, I believe, or maybe not. Tell me.
So look, we have a very sophisticated audience now, right? Everyone knows that an event there's gonna be an offer. And so for me, I play with that a bit, and I'm pretty bold and I'm pretty direct with people. And so I get on stage and I say to people, I get up and say, hi, my name is Brody Lee, and by lunchtime tomorrow, you're gonna be begging for me to sell to you. And it immediately diffuses any tension, because I tell them exactly when it's going to happen, and I tell them something interesting. Now they're on the lookout for, well, why am I going to be begging you? And it causes them to pay attention, which is part of the programming, right? And then throughout the event, and what I'm doing is I'm programming them to think differently. And I have people say, programming, they get a little bit antsy about that. And I don't do it in a sinister way. But a job when at an event is to save their life, right? You don't know who's in the room and what they're doing. And so one of my tricks is I find the most skeptical person in the room. I don't always know who it is, but sometimes I can pick it. Sometimes I'll just say, I'll see someone's face. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna imagine that you're the most skeptical person in the room. And my job, before I sell, is to win that person over. To get them to laugh, to get them to smile, to get them to engage in a different way, to get them to play full out. And then I know when I've done that, I have every single person in the room. And without fail, especially over the last year, every single time that I've pitched, by lunchtime tomorrow, somebody in the audience says, can you please just sell to us already? We are ready. And I want to hear what the offer is. And it works really, really well. And I think because I'm honest about it and I treat people like adults, then the respect, there's one of the reasons why our clients range from anywhere from a 30% close rate to some of our clients are doing above 70% when they do an in-person event. And I personally set it around 40% as well. Sometimes I do higher. I think at a couple of events I've closed 100% of the room and whatnot, but on average it's about 40%. When you think of big events by big gurus, a lot of those guys are closing at 10 to 15%. Now, obviously they've got like 15,000 people in the room, so the economics of it are very, very different, and it's harder to capture everyone for that and whatnot. The smaller, more intimate the event, the higher your close rate will be. But like I said, treat people like adults. They're there to learn, they're there to have an experience, and they're there to change their life, whether it's in business or personal development or anything like that. They want to have an experience with you, and it's your job to demonstrate how you can help them save their life or save the life of other people. And that's how I make pitching easy.
I love that. And I think, being honest, and there is this concept to like dropping the shoe, like almost like I'm going to reveal my true intentions. I'm not going to hide it. It makes you more trustworthy as well. Like I'm not a sleazy type of person. Yeah. So I love that. But do you think, because you're such a transparent person, like through and through your brand, like what you do, and do you think that works for everyone, or you have to sell in a way that is more authentic to you? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't teach everyone to sell like I do. There are principles in sales. It's like you're taking people on an emotional journey, you're taking them an emotional arc, and where they're at, and you paint a picture of what their life could be, and then you make an offer to them, right? And everyone does that differently. It works for me because of how I show up and because of my transparency and honesty, but the way in which we teach to pitch is actually very scientific. It's based on my 8 years at Apple, of now 6 years. Was it? 8 years at Apple, 6 years in this experience, 15 years of sales. I was selling before that as well, so it's about 20 years of sales experience. There are certain things that need to happen for somebody to be in what we call the buyer's pocket. I approach it through an emotional lens. This sounds crude, and I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, but when they cry, they buy. I don't like it as a statement, but from an emotional point of view, it demonstrates that all sales is emotional. It's rarely logical. And your job is to get people out of their logical brain and into an emotional state. And I don't mean emotional like they're crying, but like really seeing the value of what their life could look like on the other side. And I say could, there's no guarantees. I never guarantee anything. I used to do guarantees like everyone else, and it's just, they weren't worth the paper they were written on. It would come with this long list of conditions. And the reality is in life, there's no guarantees. And so I do the anti-guarantee now, and I say, I'm not guaranteeing you anything, and here's why. And that also probably helps with my conversion too, because people respect the honesty with it. But yeah, your job is to get them into that emotional state, and everyone does that differently. I have people in every single niche imaginable as clients or former clients, and it's also very niche specific as well. Some niches don't respond to me. I actually got some feedback recently that some people didn't respond to a piece of marketing that I put out, and other people responded really well to that. My business partner now, he actually reached out to me a year ago because of that same piece of marketing, but I've received some feedback on that marketing that some people saw it as unsophisticated. My point in that being that one person's, oh my God, this is gold, is another person's, I don't really vibe with that. And so what's cool about us merging and doing this event together is that we're actually going to be able to play to two different buying personas, those that resonate more with my style and those that resonate more with his style. I don't know how it's going to go. I assume it will go very, very well. It could be a complete clusterfuck, but we'll see.
We'll see. I love that. When they cry, they buy. That's the most hilarious thing I've ever heard, and it's so true.
I don't like it, but it paints a good emotional picture of kind of what your role is. Yeah.
And it's just so funny coming to you, because I think we've been on for 40 minutes, and I think you are dropping statistics and numbers. Like, I've never talked to anyone like that before. And I feel like that's also because some people, like, even though they buy from emotion, but they need to have those numbers or those rational details, those data, right?
Yeah. So the numbers are proof, like they're social proof. The numbers are examples of reality, like when I talk about the state of the world, those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And they're a quantifier for people, right? Often you cannot quantify success in anything other than numbers, right? How do you get someone thinking about like where they could be in life without necessarily quantifying it? So some people, they need the number to be able to say, okay, when I get to this number, I will be in an emotional state where I have everything that I want. right? And for other people, it's like, oh, I just want to feel the emotional state. And the fact that I know that it's coming to me, I almost don't care about the numbers. And so embedded in each of our events is this notion that you need to appeal to different buying personas in order to get them across the line. Mm-hmm. One thing with that, I want to talk about AI for a second, because this is changing the game in how we do things. And leveraging the power of machine learning to get psychographic and demographic information on the people that are in your room. And this AI knowing all of your content. So we're programming AI with all of our stuff. And it's already got most of it. And then going, okay, cool. You know the structure of my events. You know how I do things. You also know all of my stories now. I've fed it like over a year's worth of content that I've written and all that sort of stuff, my book, etc., etc. And here's all of the data on every single attendee that's going to be in the room. Tell me what stories to tell at what time, emotional points to hit, and what I need to do to encapsulate the more like the most of the room. AI is changing the game, and
that's fucking insane if you do
right,
that.
Right? Yeah. And it's cool because like it's a fun thing to do as well. And what it does is some people see that as, well, I've heard someone say, well, that's really manipulative and all that sort of stuff. And I go, no, it's
No,
not.
that's smart. It's very smart.
It's smart, and it's a commitment to ensuring that they get the best results possible for them in their life. They have
Exactly.
come to the event for a reason. They are searching for something. And the more that you can communicate with them in a way that resonates with them, the more you'll be doing what I say is your humanitarian responsibility, not just your fiduciary responsibility, to getting them to make a decision that could change their life through working with you. Now, here's the other thing as well. I don't expect that everyone in my room love for them to. But I also know that people in the room might be a better fit for them to work with. And what's really cool about putting people in the room is the connections that they make. A lot of people are like squeamish about people doing business with other people and all that sort of stuff. I actually encourage it. We do facilitated deal flows at our events where people can actually be at a table and meet people that might be able to help them get to the next level. It doesn't cannibalize our sales either, because people they realize this is the network that I'm getting access to. So it actually increases our sales. I would encourage everyone not to be squeamish about that sort of stuff. I let clients do business with each other as well. Like I'm really like open like that. So, yeah.
I love that. And I think it's not even, it's the level of care, I guess, because if you put all of that into the AI and plus the attendees and their, information so that you can really come up with the best way to appeal to everyone, I think it's almost like you really you care. You want to make sure that event is really, really good and appeals to everyone, right?
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
I want to make lots of money as well, so I can give it away.
Yeah, I mean, well, we got that part already because you want to help and give back. So
Right.
I want you to make more money so that you can give more back. So
That's right. I want
I
everyone
love
to do
that.
Yeah.
I love that for you. I want to go a little bit behind the scenes of the business, if you don't mind. How big is your team? Because obviously, like making these events happen, what's the logistics? Just a little bit on the.
I run with a very lean team. So my core team is 5 people. And between those 5 people, we put on our events. Now, I bring in contractors for different things as well. So I have sales support, people coming in. I have a lot of volunteers coming to our events too. It really is a team effort. But like any other business, we've got people in charge of marketing, sales, ops, all of that sort of stuff. The structure behind the scenes, the only real thing different to a traditional business is that we generally have an events manager and an events sales team as well. And they operate slightly differently to, say, an operations manager or a standard sales team, because they need to be physically on site to help us with getting people across the line. But other than that, it's the same as a traditional business. There's no real main differences. And even the events manager and the event sales team operate pretty much from similar playbooks on how you would expect a business to operate with an ops manager and a sales manager and all those sorts of things. So it's not complex. One of the biggest lies about events, and I'm so glad that we're here now, because one of the biggest concerns that people have when they are running an event, or the idea of running an event, is they think it needs to be really complex, it's really, really hard to do, and all of those sorts of things. And I look at it from a time invested point of view. So you've got 3.5 days, for example, or a 2-day event, you've got a couple hundred people in the room, and you're facilitating a sales conversation with all of those people at once. Now, how much time, effort, like human capital and all of that sort of stuff would you need to spend to be able to have 200 sales calls at once? 200 sales calls in your normal business. You're actually condensing down the amount of effort that is required. Now, are events high risk? Absolutely. They are probably the hardest, the most risky, not the hardest, they are probably the most risky acquisition strategy out there. But, with high risk comes high reward. And so the balance for me is, do I want to spend paying a team? I love paying people, by the way. I'm not dissing that. But do I want to spend time paying a team for 200 hours worth of sales calls, which I then have to pay out commissions to and all that sort of stuff? Or do I want to spend a couple of days with people in a room and make all of those sales? My overheads for team actually end up being less. So I think it works better.
I love that. And so basically you clone yourself. Like there are mini Brodies walking in a room.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. And eventually I'll get to a day where I have mini robot Brodies roaming around the room.
Oh my God, that would be so fun. Yeah, but so basically you have mini Brodies working the room, and then they are trained, they know the offer, and they connect. And then there is Brody, and if you are, co-creating with someone the event.
Yeah. So essentially what happens is that we do create table rushes where, you get like different groups of people coming to the back of the room at different stages of your pitch based on different things that you say. You hit different points psychographically, like you want to psychologically, cause different people to buy. And then those sales that are made immediately generally are commissioned to me. I mean, I say that loosely because I don't actually take it as a commission. But then anyone that needs additional support in getting across the line, or they need a follow-up conversation, goes to the sales team. I dissed on sales teams before. I have a sales team. I have all of those sorts of things, and I have people that help me out with those things. But I think it eliminates the friction of the usual sales process. Going back to what I said earlier about, are they going to buy in a 45-minute call or a 3.5-day event? Are they going to stay for longer? The trust is there in the 3.5-day event. So if I can do that and then reduce my overheads, then amazing.
Perfect.
And then, by the way, people have paid you for the privilege of you pitching to them. On a sales call, you're giving away time for free. So I don't know. I much prefer that.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry for asking so much details on that, but do you when it comes to processing the sales, are they going to be do you guys give out forms where they can put their details and I process the payment for them? What's that?
Yeah, look, this is a constant discussion with us around how to best do it. The traditional way is to get a form and to get it filled out. Mm-hmm. I want to move more away from that into iPads and things like that, just so that we're more accurate in our data collection. Things can go wrong with paper forms because, people don't fill out everything and it's illegible, that sort of stuff. But then the tech also can sometimes remove the emotional component a little bit from it. When somebody writes something down, there is a connection that happens. So this year, my goal is to test and see. One thing I don't like doing is putting a QR code up on the screen. I want people moving to the back of the room. I want them to have an interaction with our team, to be congratulated on some level. Obviously, with larger numbers of people, it's harder to do things like iPads because you need more iPads and everything. So I'm just grappling with that at the moment about how best to do it. I think with the larger events, it'll probably always just be paper.
Love that. And before we go, you talked about the use of AI to make events even better. What other use cases do you see in that space with AI?
In the space with AI. Okay, I'm going to share maybe a little bit of behind the scenes. Maybe this is too much. I hope I can share this. But basically what's happening is, I say I hope I can share this. It's my business. Of course I can. In that moment so somebody registers for our event coming up in April. Immediately after they register, they get taken to a thank you page. And on that thank you page, they have an AI agent that they dial into and they have a conversation with that AI agent. It's so cool. It sounds like a human being. I've used an Australian voice because I'm Australian.
Love that.
Novelty.
Touch.
Well, and people resonate with something slightly different as well. And then that person asks them 2 different sets of questions. The first set of questions is information about them and where they are at in business, which helps me with the pitch, right? The second part is when it gets information about their business, about their ideal client, Get information about who their ideal client is, what are their service offerings, and all of those sorts of things. And what it does is it builds up 2 different profiles for me. One to help me out with my pitch and the stories, and another one for me to be able to get a data bank of information about them so that I can include things in the offer that will reduce the time to first value for them. So somebody buys our offer at the event, within 24 hours, we can give them an entire ideal client profile breakdown with all of the emotional trigger points that they need to hit in their marketing. Plus we can give them marketing content for a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, whatever the number is. And I have this vision over the next 3 years to build this events business to a position within 3 years. It's going to be an 8-figure business, but so that I can sell or step away from the business if I want to. Now, I'm not doing that. Most people do that because they want to create like a lifestyle type thing, right? That's where they're all going to another business venture. Mine's a little bit different. I want the business to get to a position where it can grow and strategize without me, and it is not personality dependent. Meaning that, and when I say it's not personality dependent, it means that other people can be on stage at my events and sell just as well, or if not better, than I can. And so the way that that's going to run is this year is all about stability in a new market. Next year, it's about creating certifications and starting to get people certified in what we do. In the third year is around me starting to step away a little bit. So, for example, I might step away from an event. I might be I might just be at the back of the room, but I won't be on stage. Then the next one, I might be in the hotel or the venue, but not in the room at all. The next one, I might be in the same city, but not there at all. I might be on the beach or something like that. And the next one, it's like, well, I just won't even be around, and then they'll run. And then I know
At the end, there just will be a poster of you in the back.
there could be a
backdrop.
hologram of me on stage. Who knows,
Yeah.
right? We could be robots. But the reason for this is because about 2 years ago, I randomly posted on one of my business socials. I said, one day I'm going to run one of my events from space. And I was like, it was a ha-ha moment. It wasn't a declaration of anything other than that. But the universe listens, and 2 weeks later, a client of mine, Ryan, sends me this article about a hotel that they are building in space that will house 280 guests. And it will, with those 280 guests, there'll be 120 staff, and you'll be able to go up for a 3.5 day experience. Now, I was like, shit, this is no longer a harebrained idea. It's a plan. I got to do this. So originally, for 6 months, I was planning, I'm going to run a business event. It's going to be cool. I'm going to take some people up, and it'll be awesome. But it's $3 million for 3.5 days, which is a huge amount of money to go up there. And I was like, after a while, I got a little bit uneasy with it. And partially, I got uneasy with it because of wealth inequality and looking at, well, I'm in the 1%. And doing this, I would just be another rich white guy that goes to space. And that story has been told 3 or 4 times over now. And 3 of the main ones, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, those 2 guys, people either love them or hate them. I don't want that in my life. And the third one, Richard Branson's kind of like the cool uncle that everyone loves, right? I want to do something a little bit more profound than just doing what they do. And I worried that it would be not only perceived wrong, but it wasn't up to the full potential of what we could do. Like, it's a really interesting idea going up. Instead of doing a mastermind from space, what else could I do? And so what I eventually landed on, there's a whole story about how I landed on it, but we don't have enough time to go into that today. But it came out of a series of questions. And I was like, what if we ran the world's largest ever charity fundraising live aid style broadcast event? And we did it in space, but we broadcast back to Earth, and we did a 24-hour show that touched, moved, and inspired every single person on the planet. I was like, this is cool. At this point, I'm like fired up. But this is before I decided, I was already moving to the US, but this was before I decided that I was going to build this business to sell and all that sort of stuff. And that's all come since. And I was like, this is going to be so much fun. And so what we're doing is we're going to raise, I was like, oh, how much money can we raise? I'm like, you know what? Let's just set a goal that's just so far out of comprehension. The most money that's ever been raised in a charity event, somewhere between 300 and 400 million. And then I'm like, we're going to raise $10 billion for worthy causes. And that will require every single person on the planet to donate 1 day of their wage. In fact, it won't require that. It'll only require everyone on the top 20% of income earners to do that have 75% more wealth than the bottom 80% combined. Now, I'm not going to convince everyone to donate. So I'm going to heavy billionaires. I'm going to heavy governments to donate into what I'm calling a Humanity Future Fund. Now, that Humanity Future Fund will be invested into the capital markets. And those capital markets will produce returns on average between $600 million and $1 billion every single year. And for every single year in perpetuity, we will be able to invest $600 million to $1 billion into worthy causes. Now, the question then becomes, how do we donate? Which causes do we donate to? Everyone in the world's got different needs and different things that they want to donate to. And so I go, well, first of all, I'm going to make a commitment that 100% of the money that people donate will go to a worthy cause, and I will fund the foundation and the operating costs of the foundation. I want to be able to say hand on heart that, a lot of other charities, I heard a stat once that one charity, it's 95% of what you donate goes to running the charity, and only 5% goes to the kids that they're supposed to be helping. And I was like, that's not on. I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to set up a board of what's called effective altruists. Now, effective altruists look at a whole range of data to determine where we will get the most social good and social bang for our buck. And so these effective altruists will be given a guideline. I won't dictate where any money goes, but the guidelines will be, you have to do it in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 goals because smart people said for us to be able to move forward as humanity, we've got to hit these goals. You have to donate to a cause where 100% of the money goes to the ground, to the actual thing, rather than in the administrative costs. Other than that, like free range for them to donate that money, right? And then so I was like, this is really, really cool, but we've got 280 potential guest spots up there. Who are we going to bring up with us? And how are we going to fund, fund the running of all of this sort of thing? Like the event and the costs associated with it. So I was like, well, there's only a very small percentage of the world that can afford the $3 million to go, a very small percentage. And then only a smaller percentage of them that would actually want to do it. But I reckon I can convince, I reckon there's 140 millionaires and billionaires that would love to come up, that would just think it would be the best thing to have their name associated with something like this. So I'm going to auction off 140 spots with a minimum buy-in of $6 million, meaning that there are 140 spots funded for people who traditionally would never have access to something like this. And then those 280 people will be vetted, highly vetted by the effective altruists to see who will do the most good out of having this experience, experiencing the overview effect of coming up to space, being a part of the broadcast maybe. Who will do the most social good when they come home? Now, I realized out of all of this, about 6 months after all of this, I'm like, oh crap. I do this and I've written my ticket for life. Like, wow. Like I become a speaker on these sorts of things and everything. And that wasn't the intention, but I was like, this is kind of cool. That's what I want to be known for. So I realized that my mission now to increase impact is to inspire people to do things that they currently feel are impossible. So in tandem with this event, I'm also going to be creating what I call the superhero business to help people that have life-changing, planet-changing, big ideas, bring them to life. And so this is in two ways. The 280 people that we take up, when they come back down to Earth, we're going to represent them in whatever they decide to do. That's part of the condition of them coming up, right? So there's a monetization option for me there that is separate from the philanthropy. So that's kind of really cool. But then on the ground, the monetization option and the impact option is to create a series of events that help people to bring their ideas to life. You think most people on the planet, they have a harebrained, crazy idea. Most people are conditioned by society to go, that's crazy, I'll never be able to do it. People talk down on them. They say, no, you're wild, just go and get a 6-figure job. That's the goal, rah, rah, rah. But if we were to remove this language from people's minds, I can't do it, I don't have the funds. What if people laugh at me? I don't have the time, I don't have the money. People will, like my spouse won't agree, I've got to look after my kids. If we were able to remove that from their vocabulary and give them the certainty and confidence in the first event, it's a personal development event, and then take their big crazy idea from being a space moonshot thing down into something that is shaped into something that they can actually accomplish, then we're running, we're off to the races then. So that event is called Dream because everyone has a dream. The second event is called Hero. So we sell them into the second event where we actually help them make this thing and bring it to life. At the end of that, they'll have something that they can take to market, or at least the ability to start building it and growing it and whatnot. And then the final event is the one that I'm most looking forward to. And that is what I'm calling... So the second event is called Hero because in order to pursue the dream, you need to become a hero of your own life, hero for the world, etc. The last event I'm calling Superhero. And this is for people that want to be a part of a society of superheroes, right? And in that event, we're going to teach them how to go out and raise capital for their things. And with that, when we teach them to go out, we're going to bring in the best venture capitalists, angel investors, all of those sorts of things, right? And we're going to teach them how to create their pitch decks, how to go out, give them the certainty and confidence to do that. And we'll expose them to the brightest minds in that. In that room, deals will happen. And so as part of that facilitation, we'll be a part of the monetization. That'll be part of our monetization strategy as well. And so from this, we've created a world-changing event that reaches 8 billion people on the planet, that will touch, move, and inspire them in some capacity. Never been done before. On Earth, we also then take that momentum, even before the event in space happens, and we give people the tools and structures to be able to do things that are going to change humanity forever. And my God, my life will be lived... I say God, I'm not religious, but my life will be well lived when I pull this off. And I'm so excited by it. So I've got this 3-year mission, it's got to happen, and then this kind of 10-year plan that we're going to bring this other thing to life, and let's go.
I love that for you. And you know what? You're wearing the visionary t-shirt.
Yes, that was the energy I
And
wanted
you
to
are
put out.
describing your vision with such details. That's just it has to happen.
I
It
have
has to
master
happen.
plans for all of this stuff. It's funny, Elon Musk wrote a master plan for Tesla way back when, right? I didn't do this because of his, but when I think about it, like I know that Sam Altman has a master plan for OpenAI and all those sorts of things, and that's where these big planet-changing stuff. Someone has an idea and they map it out. So that's what I want to help people with. It'll be really cool.
Love that. I love that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Can you tell us like where people can find you,
Yeah.
your upcoming event?
Yes, so we're running an event, a 3.5-day event in Austin, in Texas, in April. So you can hit me up on socials. It's Brody Lee on Instagram. It's Brody Lee on Facebook. We have a couple of virtual events leading up to it as well. So hit me up if you want to just experience things before you come to the big event. If you can't make the big event, yes, I will sell to you. I make no apologies to that. And you're going to want to buy. You're going to beg for me to sell to you. So that's the main places they can get access to me. And over the next 12 months, I did a stupid thing many eons ago. I bought some fake followers online, and it's kind of destroyed my ads capacity. And so if you go to Brody Lee Live, that's going to be part personal brand, part business on Instagram, on all channels. You'll see I have 0 followers at the moment. I am committed to getting to 1,000 followers by the end of this year. I actually have a challenge that people can join to do it with me. So if you want to be a part of that, hit me up. I can say we're going to do events, 100K challenge, etc., etc. And I launch all of my content on February 1, and then on social media. So depending on when you're listening to this, you can grab me on any of those channels.
Thank you so much, Brody. Thank you for sharing everything. It was so nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you.